Hello, 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 and welcome to the Drag Race RuCap here on reality TV RHAPups. I'm your host, Liana Boraas, and today we are going to discuss episode 7 of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Season 8. And boy, was it a doozy. I'm super excited to talk about this improv challenge. With me here today is Beth Dixon. Beth, how are you?
I am doing so well. As I tweeted out to the world and sent text messages to you and Aman, I made a mistake. I decided to save watching this episode for the first time while I was on the Amtrak, where you need to be respectfully quiet of other people. And I struggled very hard to do so. On this episode, it was so good. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny because the first one you sent, like the first text you sent was like, it was about RuPaul's voiceover to set the scene for the challenge. And I was like, oh my God, she doesn't even know what she's getting herself into. Like, I can't wait till I get to some of the later parts. And sure enough, you were like, I made a huge mistake. It's so funny. Yes.
I was convulsing. I mean, honestly, I think the person next to me at first thought I was like having a medical issue because she was like looking at me like kind of concerned and then realized I was watching something. And then was like, oh, she's just weird. Okay.
Or like you're crying. Like I've had that before where like I'm laughing, but it like sounds like I'm crying. Oh my gosh.
I did let out a at one time. I have a really bad habit recently of audibly doing things that most people can control and not do. Recently I went to Subway and the monster in front of me put way too much mayonnaise on, and I don't like mayonnaise anyway. I think it's gross. And so I already was not a fan, but then like she kept being like more, and even the sandwich artist was like, I don't know about this. So at the end, it literally was like mayonnaise with a little bread. It was the gross. And so I audibly went like that. And everyone turned and looked at me. And I wanted to say, I'm not the weird one in this situation.
Like did you see the amount of mayo on that sandwich? Like, this is not my problem.
That's a crime.
Oh my gosh.
She was white, by the way. I don't know
if that matters. Like,
I just needed to put out there. I think it's obvious. But anyway.
That's okay. I had a reaction. I was out hiking and there was a couple walking towards me and they had a dog. And I was like, you know, most of the time I like if a dog's coming towards me, I usually like put my hand down and I'm like, hello, puppy, like, hi, pup. And the guy said, like, the human man said hello to me. And I replied, hi, puppy. Because I was like mentally preparing to say hello to the dog, not to him. So I straight up called a grown man puppy. So yeah, look, when it comes to verbal outbursts that like,
you don't know him, he might have a puppy mask at home. It's pride. He's feeling his kinks and everything. Maybe
I didn't see the handkerchief, but I'll look next time.
We'll look for the hanky code.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Speaking of the hanky code, we have actually a reference to that in this episode, so we can get back into it.
Okay, let's jump right on it. Well, actually, first, so as you, I'm sure, have heard, Aman is not here with us today. So it's just gonna be Beth and I. We're gonna plow through, and we'll get Aman's takes next week because, I mean, we see Lala get her first win.
Yeah,
Kahana, I don't want to say finally gets eliminated because that feels like rude, but after 4 times in the bottom, Kahana is eventually eliminated. And we had a very interesting maxi challenge. I mean, we've seen improv challenges before, but what did you think of the format of this, Beth? Because it felt different to me.
Okay, first off, if we had known before this, and you know, Aman is doing okay, so don't worry about it. But if we had known this was a relatively short notice that he was unable to join us, by the way, happy Juneteenth.
Yes.
Let's put that there. It was relatively short notice. Had we known, I think this would have been the perfect episode to have like Mari or Sarah on for like true crime drag people who like love this. So shout out to the two of them. But this episode, I'm not the biggest true crime person. But oh my God, the way this absolutely could have been on like the Sci-Fi Channel or something that is like trying to be serious while being absolutely ridiculous. Like it's one of those ones that doesn't make it to like the documentary level of being like on a Netflix or an HBO or on 2020 or whatever, or Dateline. It doesn't get to that serious level, but it's like, it's trying so hard. I loved it. The tone was everything. It was so like people like Jessica literally were exactly like I expect people to be on that show, especially the reenactments, like everything
Yeah.
was just so good. I loved it
Mhm.
so much. Are you a big true crime person?
No, I'm not either. It like scares me. So I don't know. I mean, I listen to Serial because who didn't listen to Serial? But
Fair.
the like yeah, in general no, but I totally know the vibe that they were going for. I
Yeah.
think it's not what I expected at all,
Right.
and I was really happy about that. Like I didn't know that they were sort of going for that type of vibe because when, the prompt is given and Rue comes out and says, "Okay, this is your maxi challenge. You're going to be doing improv your way through the new like Rue crime scene forensic queens or whatever it was."
Mhm.
I was thinking, "Oh, okay, they're gonna be, like, acting together, like, on a CSI kinda show." Like, that's more
Right.
the vibe that I was thinking. So when we got this sort of, like, retrospective take with, of course, the reenactments and all of that,
So good.
it felt so refreshing, it felt so fun, it felt so new, and because I was not expecting it, I think that that also made it really enjoyable, and, of course, when
Mhm.
the queens excel, then of what's not to love?
It was just all around really, really strong. And I think what I'm assuming what happened is that RuPaul recorded his voiceover after they did the improv portion and then
Mhm.
incorporated it that way. Because clearly at one point we actually physically see RuPaul as a reenactment, which was a strange take, but that's a separate thing. And I think honestly, it made it so great because he was able to respond and make I don't know, like little clips in reference to what they were saying.
Mm. Mhm.
He's like, this nosy bitch does blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my, RuPaul for me was the winner of this challenge. I was cracking up on the train the moment you're like, little pound cake was just, I'm
Like,
sorry.
even the setup for the challenge.
I had
Yeah.
not gotten into the challenge and I was already in a fit. Like it was
Mhm.
so perfectly like the timing between the clips was fantastic, RuPaul's tone and the seriousness, but also trying to give you that little bit. It's like, it's not quite ASMR, but you're almost like, why are we being so soft about this? Like
Mhm.
that tone of the voice, it was nailed. And just like the clips that they chose, you know that when they put little pound cake on whatever that like
Oh, the rolly thing?
like, yeah, like the
Yeah, I know
Roomba or whatever
yeah.
that they she came in on.
Not
You,
a Roomba.
they like you gotta know. There's not a single person who was probably not cracking up when they filmed that. They're like, all right, we gotta make sure there's no sound on this. But like it was so stupid. I loved it so much.
Mhm. Okay, good. I'm glad you had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun
Yeah.
too. I think that this was just a really like goofy, silly, fun challenge. And I feel like I assume Forensic Queens was based on the show Forensic Files, but also
Mm.
thinking of like Unsolved Mysteries, which are just these like 80s, 90s shows that are just really
Yeah.
like they're also just very goofy too in the way that they handle these crimes. So I thought this was really fun. Let's go through the challenge and talk about everything because also, of
Sure.
course, I mean, elephant in the room a little bit with Rue coming in and essentially preventing Kahana from leaving, then only for Kahana to end up going home. So we'll get to that. But I think
Yeah.
for me, still, despite that drama, the headline for me is still the Maxi Challenge,
Oh,
just because I thought
1,000%.
it was so fun and so good.
Yeah, definitely.
So
It
yeah,
felt
so
like two different episodes, to be honest with you.
it really did because it was almost like we got that part out of the way early, and then we had like the rest of the regular episode
Yeah.
that just happened. So let's
Yeah.
just set the scene for the maxi challenge. We can go through some of the different characters and how the queens did. So as I mentioned, it's the Rue crime series, Forensic Files. What happened? A little pound cake. So we get a setup for this. And what's important here is that it's all improv, but the queens do get to pick their parts and they get to sort of develop their own characters from the prompts that they're
Mhm.
given. So, for example, like Jessica Wilde's character, You're a Drag, had this prompt of like Lil Pound Cake was sleeping with her boyfriend. So
Right.
there's some direction, but overall, it was definitely very open. So that
Yeah.
makes me also curious to know how they did that within the confines of like telling the story. It was Lala
Yeah.
Ri like, I need a golf cart. I need to be driving a golf cart as a security guard. Like, did she come up with that? I would
I assume.
love to know. I assume too. So, or like maybe the basic structure of the story, or going back to what you're saying, did they do the voiceover after where the queens were able to create what they, did and then they fit it into a story? Honestly, I have no idea. I kind of don't really care because I had
No, I
fun
don't either. It was
regardless.
so good. I mean, the only reason why I care is because I genuinely want to know because it was good. I was like, how did
Right.
you do this? And can you please replicate this in not the same exact way, but in similar ways in future seasons? Because this was definitely a successful model.
I really want to see this again. And I want to see it again because one, either it's because the queens were so good that it was successful, or two, like this is just going to always sort of be at least somewhat successful. And even
Yeah.
like the worst version of this, like maybe, is still going to be good or okay. Because I think
Yeah.
we had 3 super strong, super solid performers and everybody else did well.
There wasn't a horrible person. And like I think that we're saying that every week because it comes across like Kahana, for example, is not doing well in the competition. It's like we're splitting the split end on the split end of hairs. You know what I mean? Like she is well, I'll get into. I don't think that she should have been the bottom, but like,
I don't think so either.
Just put that out there. But there's been a lot of questionable judging this season anyway, and I just feel like honestly, this challenge showed everybody like it doesn't matter what's in your skill set or not. Like everybody would have assumed that Alexis Michelle could have like acted the shit out of this, and I think she quite arguably did the worst. Because I agree with what the judges were saying. It came across as a little stiff and she didn't really go over the top with it like everybody else was doing with her character. And you don't have to be over the top in a camp way. You just have to take that character and kind of push it to whatever the next level is. And she didn't really do that. And so therefore she didn't stand out. And I'm kind of like, oh, if you're going to do it, if someone has to be in the bottom, really felt like it should have been her. But all of that said, I don't know. I really think they need to replicate this again. And I would love for them to replicate the like sketch show one as well. So there's some challenges from this season. I would love them to do in like a regular season and see how queens who haven't been on the show deal with this too.
Or do the improv challenge or like this specific improv challenge. I would love to see them also try it maybe a little bit earlier. I don't know if that would complicate things with the way that they did it. Like too many queens would just get in the way and make it a total like production mess. But I think that would also be really fun to see. And also maybe some different combinations of having the queens together. Cause in terms of them acting with each other, we didn't see a whole lot of that. It was mainly just developing their character, giving the talking heads, which I don't think is like necessarily a bad thing either, because most of the time it is about them interacting. So it was nice to see something different.
I did see that Alexis Michelle said that they cut a lot of her part out, which we've also seen for the past few seasons, queens saying, well, a lot of my good stuff was edited out. And so I think, again, we have to always remember that this is a reality show and they're trying to justify the storylines that the producers are coming up with. So,
well, let's talk about what we did see because
important.
Look, I think there's a lot to discuss here because if we kick things off with Kahana, who was in the bottom, I wouldn't have put her in the bottom. She had one of the jokes that I can still remember, like without having to rewatch it. The first time I watched it, and it was the one about like I was a bitch, and now I'm a bigger bitch, which is growth. And that joke, I've heard that style of that joke before, but I don't care. I thought it was funny. I really liked it. I felt like she got into her character. I hear the critique of like, oh, she didn't really know who she was. I didn't really get that necessarily. I felt like, yeah, she's like, kind of the like prissy bitch character, and that's what she's gonna go for. And I felt like that was pretty consistent throughout. So I think she did a really serviceable job, and I don't think she should have been the bottom. I think that Kandy and Alexis should have been the 2 in the bottom.
I 1,000% agree with that. They should have been the 2, and then the bottom safe person for me would have been Jimbo, and I would have put Kahana as the top safe person with Jessica and
wait, what? Hold on. So you would have put Kahana above Jimbo, Jessica, and Lala.
Lala. I was trying to remember who the person was. I literally just lost it. I literally was like, I've run out of queens. I don't know who I'm talking about. No, I would have put Jessica and Lala in the top 2 with Kahana being the safe top person. Like the third person. And then I would have put Jimbo as the other safe, but she would have been the safe for the bottom queens. if you split it up.
Okay, yeah. I was not that high on Kahana. I think I still would have. For me, it was a very clear top 3 with Jimbo, Jessica, and Lala being for me the clear top 3. But then I think it was like those 3, then a little bit of a gap, then Kahana, then a little bit of a gap, then Alexis and Kandy. For sort of 2 different.
I can see that. I actually didn't like Jimbo's performance. I was just kind of like, okay, I expect her to kind of outdo herself, and I really didn't think that she did. It was one joke that was funny at first, and then that's all she had. And I also will get to it too, but I really am getting the sense, and we'll talk about this later, that runways don't matter at all anymore. And there's like, and I've been saying this, I know, throughout the season, but this episode was abundantly clear because, like, I'm sorry, Jimbo should not have been. Like, that would have been absolutely what also brought her down a peg for me, too, over Kahana's. Even though Kahana, I'm like, okay, showgirl, again, I get it, you know? So, but anyway.
Yeah, I think for Kahana's look, to do tired ass showgirl, but then to be like, it's I agree. Tired? It's mislabeled. Yeah, I was like, look a little bit more busted.
It should, you either need to look busted as all hell. You need to look like you've been doing it for so long that you just have not, you can't give a shit about it anymore. Or you have to literally try to make the outfit look like you're literally asleep. Like that, like, you remember when the Courtney act came out with like the sleeping bag look? I mean, find a way to do something like that, the like tired ass showgirl, where like it's literally a showgirl outfit like made tired out of bedding or something like that. You know what I mean? Like something like that I think would have been better. But regardless.
Yeah. Well, so Kahana plays Amma Fox, who is one of the suspects in the unaired season of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars. Is there anything else you want to say about Kahana?
I mean, I honestly, again, like you said, the judges were like, we didn't see, like, we didn't know who you were. I was like, this is the filler queen that comes back every single All-Star. Who are you talking about? This is exactly, this is the person that you cast for the drama on every single All-Stars. Like, what do you mean you don't know that person? Half of them are still on the stage right now. And they're killing the competition. No one's a filler queen this season. Like, but when the cast first was announced, I think that a lot of us were thinking, wow, what a lot of filler queens coming back. And they've proven that they're not, which is great. But what do you mean you don't know that character? You literally cast them all the time.
And also you've been talking to her a lot because she's been in the bottom a lot.
Yeah.
So how do you not know her? All right, next up, let's talk about Kandy with Anita Clue. And Kandy was unwilling to budge, which this is sort of the thing that created all of the drama. So did Kandy deliver? And I think you and I both sort of agree, not as much.
She was fine. But she didn't bring it to the level of everybody else. And I've seen this critique. I wholeheartedly agree with it, which is that Kandy doesn't act like anybody else other than Kandy when she acts. And she tweeted out, because RuPaul literally told me, never play another character other than yourself because I love who you are. And I'm not going to go against RuPaul's advice on his own show, which is then makes it even richer that when I watched it after reading her tweet, that he is literally the one on the judges panel was like, you know, I love Kandy, but, you know, it'd be great to have a different character. And I was like, well, what is that telling you, Kandy?
Well, I think but then followed up with, but I thought it was funny because I love you playing you. So I think the last thing you hear, that's like the this, but. So you always hear the thing that's after the but.
Right.
And so I think like what I took away from that, especially given the result of the judging, was yes, you played you. And like, if you could not do that, that would be better, but like we still like you being you, and so we're okay with that, and so we're gonna still make you safe. That was sort of my read of the situation based on the critiques. And I think for the judges, or for Ru being Ru's show, that's fine. If that's the criteria you want to use, it's your show. As a fan, and I see that, I'm like, okay, I'm over it. I
Mm-hmm.
would prefer something else to be rewarded instead of seeing Kandy play Kandy. I think the
Mm-hmm.
choice of the lollipop was really great,
Mm-hmm.
but still at the end of the day, like, yeah, I like genuinely can't tell a difference between the Kandy who was involved in the drama earlier and then the Kandy who was acting in the improv. So,
I will say this. Kandy did very well reacting to everybody. So like and she did it in a really I thought was a really good way for like a reenactment where she was like, "Oh, so you're saying this."
mm-hmm.
Oh, and that was comical to me. So what was funnier than her lines was what her face was doing and being so serious and being like, "Oh, okay, yes." Like that to me was funny. So I want to give her props. Like she didn't do horrible by any
Mm-hmm.
means. It just was we've seen it, and everybody else was given something that we haven't seen before, except for Alexis, which we'll get to. But
She also gave Kahana one of my other favorite lines from Kahana, which when she was like, "Where is the body?" She's like, "Akiria is the
it's the
body."
body.
So that's I don't know if that was a setup that they planned or that was something that just Kahana came
It
up
was
with,
so
but
good.
like having someone that, as you said, will react or play with you, like that's something that's super important that can help set others up for success,
Mhm.
but doesn't necessarily do Kandy any favors, at least in terms of viewing her performance.
Do you think that Alexis would have been better in that role?
I don't know. I think Alexis probably would have taken a sort of similar approach. I mean, I do get what she's saying in terms of feeling like the district attorney and the detective were sort of similar, like kind of hard
Mhm.
ass straight man roles.
Mhm.
I think she probably would have done something similar, and I think Kandy may have done something similar for the other one. So I don't think there would have been a drastic difference. I think that Alexis would have had more to play with, and I
Mhm.
think there would have been more for her to showcase because the detective is more integral to the story. So if
Yeah.
Alexis' critique is like, they cut a lot of my like best stuff, probably because it didn't fit or they didn't have time for it or
Right.
whatever, maybe she would have been able to get more stuff across. So it would
Mhm.
have like looked like she did better.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep. I think it makes sense. I was trying to think about it, and I was like, I'm going to be honest. If she played the detective the same way that she played the DA, then I think Kandy would have beat her out on how she did. So I don't know.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, let's talk about Alexis because
Okay.
I think, this is, well, I guess technically this is the second time she's been in the bottom, but for me, it feels like this is truly her first time in the bottom because
Right.
the actual first time she was in the bottom was for the group challenge.
Which,
And
yeah.
she definitely felt like, well, she's only in the bottom because the other two.
Well, I felt like Darian did the best out of that group, and she was
Oh,
like
right.
more
Yeah,
of a
yeah,
bottom person than Darian,
yeah.
but
Mhm.
James was clearly the bottom in that group.
Yeah.
Like
No.
I really do think it's weird that she hasn't won yet. Like she has
Mm.
been, in my opinion, the most consistent performer besides maybe Jimbo. Like she can, for me, always has one of the best runways, if not the best one.
Mm.
And she always is doing really, really well. And in the challenges. So to see her properly, in my opinion, be one of the weakest, and I think she was the weakest this week. As an unapologetic Alexis Stan, I can admit that for sure. I do think that she was like honestly a little boring in this
Mhm.
episode for the acting.
Mhm.
Where she was not boring was when she was crying in the beginning. The television she makes is just so good. I'm sorry. I like sat there and I was rolling my eyes like, girl, but I also am that sensitive bitch too, where like I would try not to cry in front of other people. But I also do want to point out that I think there's an important thing here, which is that there is always a pattern on the show and on a lot of other shows where white queens and white people tend to cry after a person of color stands up to them. And white tears are a real thing and are utilized against people, especially from white women, to actively harm. So checking that is important. And I've noticed that every time Alexis has cried, it's normally been because, or like not because of like, someone's leaving or something, but every time she's cried that she's been in a conflict or something, it's always in a reaction to a queen of color. So.
Well, we do hear about Alexis talking about how she feels her feelings. She's a very sensitive queen. We see Ru, like, when Ru's giving the speech, Ru's like, and you've been crying the whole time. So I don't know. Maybe Alexis Michelle is just someone who she just feels her feelings and she's going to cry regardless of what is happening.
I cry all the time. I cry. It's like my go-to emotion. If I'm too happy, too sad, too nervous, too whatever, it's just, that's how I process things.
Yeah.
So I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, oh man, please don't cry right now. No, don't do it.
Well, she did tweet the, Alexis, like the 3 different, like, which Alexis are you right now, like, for crying, like full drag cry, half drag cry, out of drag cry. Yeah.
Half drag cry all day long.
I think, yes, unequivocally, she is a fantastic television character. In terms of this challenge, I do feel like I know what she was going for in terms of like kind of this straight, like she's trying to play this like kind of straight man character, but still has these jokes, to get I think the dig on Michelle Visage, like, she's got these kind of like rehearsed canned jokes in there. And I think that was just how it felt. Like, I did understand the critique of just letting loose a little bit and
let loose,
baby, let loose. Yeah. It's the same critique that I had a little bit with her Snatch Game, which was, it feels so prepared in like the best A+ student prepared way you could be. And that makes it feel sometimes so rigid and like so well thought out that it doesn't feel as off the cuff and spontaneous and fun in the way that you kind of like want this improv scene to be.
Have you ever watched Dance Moms?
Yes. Oh my God. Abby Lee Miller.
Duh. Okay. Duh. So when Maddie, the one that
was like always doing the best.
Okay.
Whatever Michelle stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have Maddie and then you had like Chloe, right? And Chloe was always really good, but she was getting shit on like all the time.
Yes.
Chloe was always technically really good. But what she sometimes lacked that Maddie just had oozes of, which just was like natural charisma in her movement, where she was able to properly tell a story. And I'm not saying that Alexis can't do that, but she comes off as very technical rather than kind of letting loose to get into like I can't say that. I almost said it at a meeting last week. Someone's like, you need to let loose and blah, blah. And I was like, I can't say it. But if you're ever in a meeting and someone says that and you see me go like little dance, that's why. So yeah, I think you're right there. I think that she's just a little too prepared.
And I think that, I think if what she's saying is true about the things being cut, like I believe that she had more jokes. I mean, she definitely gives me the vibe of like, she probably gave them 3 or 4 takes, like for each of the ones that she was doing. But unfortunately for her, we have to go based on what we're seeing in front of us. Right. And I do agree that I think she probably did the worst. I feel so bad because, they're going on track record, right? We're thinking based on track record. And Alexis Michelle, you're right. She doesn't have the win, but she gives me that consummate professional. Like she probably should have a win, with the Jans and the Elevidays and the Rosés. Like she's all in that camp of like consummate professional that's just like never going to get the recognition they deserve because they just don't necessarily have that Maddie factor, to go back to the Dance Moms analogy.
I kind of feel like she's going to go next. It's like she's either going to go next or she's going to win a challenge. Like there's no in between. Like that's how I feel it is.
Yeah. I think the fact that they put her in the bottom, if they edited out stuff, I think they're seeing the drama and they're happy for the drama. But I think because I think the question is, it's either Kandy or Alexis next.
I agree.
For me. And who do they want to keep? Based on what I'm seeing, the evidence in front of me, let me put on my little forensic file glasses. I think there's the Kandy favoritism over the Alexis Michelle-ness.
1,000%.
So I would agree with you that she probably goes next. But we'll do some drag math at the end and we'll see how these episodes line up because we're on episode 7 and we're now down to the top 5. Like we ended this episode with the top 5 at episode 7.
So,
Okay. Let's talk about, in my mind, what was our top 3. I think let's start with
1000%.
Jimbo, who is probably the most polarizing between the two of us.
Yeah.
So doing the Eva dance.
Yeah.
And yes, I hear what you're saying, that the
Mhm.
Stankfanger thing was her one gag.
Mein Stinkfinger.
I think for me, like I look at what she was given in the character file and I look at the weirdness that she created.
Fair.
And that's what I'm impressed with. I'm like, you gave her a German accent. You gave her a Stankfinger that she rubs in crime scenes and then she smells, which gives her the ability to there were just so many weird things. Like,
That's
how did
fair.
you
Yeah.
think of that? That's so bizarre. You took this potentially uptight, boring scientist character and made her into this very bizarre German woman. What? Okay. You go, Jimbo.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that. And I think that that's absolutely fair. And I think part of the reason why, regardless, I felt like she should have been safe, is because I see that creativity. I'm also used to that creativity and I expect it from Jimbo. So I guess that it's her setting the bar so high for herself that it's, I don't know, it's like I have to judge queens differently, I guess, based off of what I've seen before, where the growths are. And this for me, when you have cracked out Shirley Temple, and last week people thought she should have been in the bottom. I didn't think she should have been in the bottom, but I also see why. I just feel like she kind of does like a little wave where like she's so polarizing every single week. So I think for me, because it was a repetitive joke every single time, there was really nothing else. The story itself, like you're saying, incredibly creative. But I don't know. I'm not going to lie, I was just like really grossed out by the finger. It's like really grossed
You're
out.
what did she actually stick that up her booty hole?
I was just like, what is this?
Poop?
What?
I'm sure. I hope for her sake it was like eyeshadow or something that she
I'm
just
sure.
doctored up her
And then
fingers.
there was something sticking to the finger too.
And
And I'm not gonna lie, I was like laughing on the train and also having a fit, but then I was also like, ugh, that was gross. And it's just it was a lot of emotions at one time.
I saw a video that somebody posted on Reddit of her doing a lip sync to Padam Padam, the Kylie Minogue
The
song.
Kylie Minogue song.
Yeah, and she does a reveal into cracked out Shirley Temple and then does the Shirley Temple dance. Which I just that's the way you could have won. If she had done that week, I think she would have been able to maybe pull out a win. But
oh my
anyways.
god. I thought you were gonna say she did a reveal and she was the entire Stenkfinger.
Oh, she was the Shankfinger. No. This is cracked out Shirley Temple.
Okay, thank God. I would take a picture with that. I wouldn't take a picture with the Stenkfinger.
Let's talk about then our top 2. I assume your top 2, my top 2, Lala Ri and Jessica Wilde. Yeah. Who do you want to start with?
Let's talk about Jessica Wilde, and then we'll save the winner of the challenge for last.
All right.
Jessica Wilde was a fucking revelation. She took what could have easily been such a boring character, the way that she was presenting the character, but she said things with such conviction that were so ridiculous. And like all the stuff about her Taco Tuesday order, and she was like, and I know she is not on food stamps because she gets guacamole, and guacamole it's extra. And I was just
yes,
she would not dying
from the moment she started with she left her ETB card behind. And that was the reason why it was suspicious. That was weird to me. That was weird.
That was weird to me
because she loved to celebrate Taco Tuesday. She likes the soft shell, the tacos with the soft shell. That created as soon as that happened, I saw already that monologue with the emojis on Reddit already going around. It was just
good.
That whole thing was so funny. I also loved her line about, I'm not a Republican. I didn't kill her. That also really made me laugh.
Oh,
It
man.
was so good. And I think the reason why, if I was making the decision, I'm not mad at the Lala Ri win. I think she was also super funny, definitely delivered. The reason why I probably personally would have given it to Jessica Wilde is because it was a little more of that like subtle humor
Mhm.
of just being able, as you said, to like give her lines with such a straight face, but just be so amusing and so funny. I was really
She
impressed with her. I
nailed
think
it.
she nailed it. Agreed. Totally agree.
I also want to give props to the cinematographers for this too, because they filmed her with the right lighting and angle of what they do with those confessional things, where
Mm.
like she's looking at such an extreme angle over here, but they're filming her from over this way. And she had the head tilt down and was talking just like the same pacing and like rhythm that somebody
Mhm.
would do there. And they're like, and that was weird to me
And that was,
because she
yeah, the
wouldn't do that.
cadence.
Like the
Yeah, it was.
cadence, thank you. That's exactly, she had that down. And like
Mhm.
you could have put that in a real TLC, documentary, true crime story, and I would have been like, I get it.
I
This
see it.
person's ridiculous, but I also think like there have been times where people on those shows are ridiculous in what they're
Mhm.
saying. They're like, well, that person, they always like to put their socks out on the line on Sunday. Sunday came, their socks didn't go on the line. I knew something was fishy. And you're like, what
What?
the hell
What?
are you saying? Right? It's I love that though. That
Uh,
she nailed it.
I think she nailed it too. And she was up against stiff competition. And
Mhm.
I think Lala Ri slips up a little bit. And I think this is Jessica Wilde's to win. But this was really felt like finally the recognition, especially after last week. We talked about
Right.
how well Lala
She
did.
Yeah.
And this was just further confirmation that, yes, she's killing it. She's having such a redemption on this season.
Really.
And this was, she knew as soon as she read those parts, she's like, I know who this is. This is my aunt. I'm doing this role as the security
I'm
guard.
not going to say her name on national television because I don't
Mhm.
want to call her out, but
Yep.
she's going to
But
know it's her.
yep. Yep.
Oh man, she really nailed this. I loved every time she said eloquent, and I knew that it was going to happen because it was literally in the role description.
Mhm.
But the constant asking for money portion killed me. Where she finishes talking with the cop or with the detective, and then she goes, "You got $5?" It was so stupid.
And it was so quick too. I'm so happy the editors left it in because that could
Yeah.
have been an easy, like, just slice it off the end of the conversation. As soon as she finishes, can I have $5?
Can I have $5?
And I think what really, like, it was certainly more over the top.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, like, I like the subtlety of Jessica Wilde's performance, but Lala Ri is just total like driving the golf cart around, like smashing into stuff.
Her whole leg is like Fred
Yeah.
Flintstoning it on the side. Like, what was that? While she's talking on the phone. Like, it was so stupid.
How are you even sitting like that? How are you doing that? It's
Oh my
so impressive.
God.
And there was all those just over the top moments that, especially for, I mean, for drag, like just doing those kinds of things over the top are just really help to nail down the super comedic performance. And
Yeah.
I don't know who didn't laugh at Lala.
It was so good. And I understand the case for Jessica to win. I actually think that when it comes to looks, Jessica's was better and could have absolutely pushed her
Mhm.
above Lala. But I am so excited for Lala to have a win. She's been on an upward trajectory. She arguably could have won last week. Jessica arguably could have won last week, I guess, too. But like, I mean, the
Mhm.
two of them, Jessica, who hasn't been on in a long time and made it to about the upper half of the season, and Lala, who left relatively early.
Mhm.
These two queens who people honestly I think we're kind of writing off when the cast was announced. I'm so happy to see them just like absolutely killing it because they're
Mhm.
both so talented and deserve the recognition they're getting on the show now.
Absolutely. And I see them in the finale with Jimbo. I
Yeah.
hope. I really hope, because I think if there's someone who's going to be able to take the crown from Jimbo, it's going to be one of the two of them. And I would have said Jessica Wilde, But I think Lala's making a really strong run for it. If
Yep.
Lala's looks were just a little bit better, I think that could propel her
Yeah.
even further. But she's
I
definitely in the
also
conversation for me.
I also think, just generally speaking, when you're talking, it's not just the outfit itself. I think that Lala, and we could always talk about, pigmentation of skin, but Lala's makeup is not as like refined as Jessica's in that
Mhm.
sense too. So like I feel like every time I look at Jessica, I'm looking at a complete look from hair and makeup, accessories, outfit, even if it's campy. And sometimes with Lala, I'm going like, ooh, that highlight's a little harsh today, or that's not well blended, or whatever. So again, I understand that like obviously skin tone is like a big obstacle to go through too, as a darker queen. But I also think like she just in general, her looks are just under the quote unquote quality that I personally like to see on Drag Race, but that doesn't mean it's not good. I think that she kills it. I love some of her concepts that she's come up with this season. It's
Right.
been great.
I think about her reveal look and I'm like, that was not a reveal. But then
Mhm.
I think she nails it this week. So
I
it's
agree.
it's more just not that it's more just like ups and downs, I
Yeah.
think. Instead of like
It's not consistent.
Jessica Wilde is more consistent.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the runways, but before we do, I just want to mention Rue, and you already brought up Rue with his performance throughout this whole thing. So Rue when you find out finally that the security guard is the one who did the murder, you get a flashback of Rue as the security guard tearing apart Lil Pound Cake on the main stage. And I was like, it's like blurry. It's like a season one Vaseline filter, black and white. And I was like, oh my God, is that it is
I
was
thought I
RuPaul?
thought it was RuPaul, and then I was like, "No, no, 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 it's definitely Lala." And then I was like, "Oh no, that's RuPaul."
That's RuPaul.
I am I'm confused, like, why they decided to just have this part, because
Right?
like, everybody else was doing the flashbacks as themselves. It wasn't like they hired other actors to do this, right?
Yeah.
But I also don't care because RuPaul was so I'd said it before, I'll say it again. RuPaul won this challenge for me. The voiceovers were perfect. This was just complete insanity and
Uh,
unexpected. Like, it was so, and the fact that RuPaul is giving the voiceover while also acting this out, to me was just so stupid.
so
I loved it.
good. Oh my God, it was so good. Yeah, I don't even. It was so unexpected, I think, too, was also the big part of it of like,
Yeah.
what?
Oh
All right.
god.
Let's talk about the runways.
Yes.
And we can just kind of go through each person because we only have 6 runways to talk about.
Mhm.
So the first one, Jessica Wilde, she does Miss Sausage Party,
Mhm.
which look, is this a gown with some sausage stuff over it and
Yeah.
like a sausage tiara? Yes. Yes,
It
it
sure
is.
is.
But it's funny. It makes me laugh.
I
I'm okay with
I
it.
I wish she was Miss Sausage Fest and then had gone for
Ah,
like a festival look with it. Because I also feel like Sausage Fest is what people say more so than Sausage Party.
mhm.
Um, but I love this color yellow on her. She looks really great. And I love that you have this like really well put together dress and accessories and hair, and then really kitschy and campy attire. Like, it's not like the
Yeah.
sausages look real. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, right,
everything else is realistic for the miss part, and then
right.
everything else is so ridiculous.
It's like, okay, like I don't like the really weird sort of faux leather corset thing with like fake sausages hanging off of it, but like, here we
It
are.
reminded me, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie or the stage production of The Producers, the
Mm.
musical, but when they
Mhm.
come out for Springtime for Hitler and they have like
Yeah.
all the
Yes.
like women with like the like sausage and pretzels and beer and such, this is what it was giving me, and I
Yeah.
was here for it.
We already sort of talked about Kahana with her Miss Tired Ass Showgirl. She looks
Mhm.
absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I could
Absolutely
never.
stunning. It's Showgirl again, which
Mhm.
I raised this critique a little bit last week of like I would hope
Mhm.
for a little bit more variation. I understand why it's her aesthetic, of course. Vegas, let's do it. Let's go all out. And then the tired ass part doesn't really quite fit as much, but
Yeah.
she does look amazing.
And I have to say again, I think what she was going for was, the quote that we all know from
Right.
Fifi back in season 4, and I love it. But if you're gonna do that, play with the theme a little bit more. But
Yeah.
obviously, Showgirl, she got that down.
Yes, that is one look that she definitely knows how to do really, really well.
Incredible.
Next up, we have our winner of the challenge. It is Miss Lala Ri doing Miss Bootlegger. I think my favorite part of this was when she whipped out the Asia O'Hara DVD.
It was so ridiculous.
It felt so random too. I was like, are they friends? Like, why Asia O'Hara?
Why
of
Asia?
all
Yeah, I
people?
don't know.
Yeah.
I also love that her sash was on backwards. And just like another like little tip of the bootlegger, like it's not on the way it should be. It's backwards, it's reversed, it's whatever. Like you expect something like, like when you watch a bootleg movie and it's filmed and like flipped screen, so it's like everything that's on the right is actually on the left or whatever, like that kind of stuff. I love
you
that.
get the front is just totally blank. It's like
Yeah.
the way on the back.
Yeah,
she had all the accessories. I think this one just worked for the concept that she was going for, and also it's like, who would have thought of that?
It was so funny.
Such a great idea. Kandy does Miss Arrogant, which this I think was based off of the look that she was wearing when she got into this was an Untucked, right? The fight
with Tamisha.
Right, with Tamisha Aman. I'm just not crazy about the proportions here.
I love the reference.
Yes.
And that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I think the hair is really gorgeous.
Oh, the hair is cool.
It reminds me of something Simone would make.
Like, yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, the top sort of like faux fur part doesn't really match the cheerleader skirt thing, and
there's feathers.
Yeah.
And also the plainest shoe I've ever seen in my life.
I think I wore that to a work conference once. Anyway,
that work conference shoe.
Those work
Nothing says Miss Arrogant like a work conference shoe.
Work conference shoe, yes. Alexis Michelle is up next with Miss Man Pig, and she went for this. Oh my gosh. Yes.
I'm telling you, I mean it sincerely. I think Alexis Michelle is one of the most gorgeous queens. Like she knows how to paint her face. She knows how to turn a look, especially a more pageanty looking look as well. And I love that she went for this jockstrap formal gown. The proportions are beautiful as a dress and are also leave nothing to the imagination of what she's trying to be. You're like, oh, is that your boob or are those your package that you've got? And you're like, it's so interesting. And then because it's Miss Man Pig, you got the yellow on the bottom. And then you're rocking the hanky code like train with like the scepter to me. And like it's like the little label, but it's her name, Alexis last. Like it's so smart. It is so smart. This was far and away my favorite one.
I totally agree. I think this is the one that like the most work was put into this one. It seems like just based on the way that the gown was constructed, the gown is absolutely stunning, but then for it to be absolutely filthy on top of that, just totally stained, boots the house down, disgusting.
And I didn't even clock until just now that she was also wearing that black leather glove, like in this. Yeah, I didn't even catch that the first, couple times I watched this though.
Yes. And I think that that's just, it makes the look, I mean, overall, so good. Yeah. Equal parts camp and glamour. Jimbo.
Not exactly equal. Yeah. Not exactly equal parts camp and glamour for this one.
Yeah.
Mostly camp for this one.
I mean, Jimbo's known for her breastplate. I was happy that we got to see her in a look last week with no breastplate, showing a little bit of versatility. And then we cranked it up to 11 here with her largest set of breasts that she has.
Yeah. I don't have this issue, but I know there are quite a few people who feel very strongly about Jimbo's usage of breastplates and such. And all I could think is like, the conversation before the season even started, and I'm sure Jimbo was like, oh, I'm in a world of hurt when episode 7 airs. Like, this is for me where we're starting to border on what, for me, what a lot of people are saying about the misogyny. This to me is making fun of boobs a little bit more than paying homage to a fuller figure and loving the character with it. That's where this is taking me a little bit more. I'm not offended. I'm not, but I absolutely would understand if others are. Because this, if the whole character is Tits McGee and then you have these tits and no proportion for those boobs, like, I don't know. I understand it, is what I want to say.
It makes me laugh. I think of it as just so ridiculous, so parody, just absolutely. Like the fact that she hung the sash from a tit, like that that makes me laugh.
The fact in Untucked, she just stuck her
drink
in the boobs and just sipped out of the straw. Like, I have friends who are very well endowed in the chest, and my goodness, I've seen them rest quite a few things on their boobs, a beer bottle or whatever. And like, I definitely get it. And I don't think that her intention behind this is to make fun of people, but I'm saying I can see it a little bit more. Now, I thought this was funny too. I love, like you said, like the best part for me is the sash. I hate the dress.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also know that's not really the point. The dress is not the point.
Right.
The crown is awesome too.
The fact that it's so tacky fits okay. Like, I can understand why these were the fabric choices made. But yeah, it looks ugly.
I also love the crown saying McGee 2003 in the crown is really good.
Yeah, the like inlay of the text in the crown. Yeah, like that was custom. That's all very cool. All right, we have, as we said, our winner, Lala Ri, and she is going to get the opportunity to lip sync this time for the crown and for her legacy. And she gets to lip sync against Georges. So, little lip sync assassin Georges, who we all know Ru loves. The song choice is About Damn Time by Lizzo. And no offense to Georges, because I think she did well, but Lala smashed this out of the park for me.
1,000%. Lala had camp and fun and, like, honestly just like Lizzo energy, right? Yes. And Georges was, first of all, I was missing the punching the ghost part. I was waiting for it and it never happened. And I was like, oh man. But I just think that Georges this time just looked like she wasn't really connecting with what she was doing. She was just kind of like dancing, and that was it. Not that she did poorly, but Lala, for me, I was just like, yeah, this is the Lizzo energy that you want to see with a song like this.
Georges has always sort of had that problem for me with a little bit of the dead behind the eyes sort of thing. And then once the dancing was not enough to make up for the dead behind the eyes sort of thing, then that's when Georges went home. Yeah. Because I remember in the Moulin Rouge Rusical, like she performed well, did the choreo well, but when she was performing, it was just like, hello. And I think that's just how Georges rolls. And that's fine. You know, potentially depending on the song and who she's up against, I think that Georges absolutely could have win here. I don't think that as a lip sync assassin, she was an odd choice. I think it totally makes sense. Just Lala did so well. And I think Lala knew how to build the energy of the song too, to continue to go up and up and up in energy. And I think that can't be overlooked and is the rightful winner for me for this lip sync.
I think Georges would have won against maybe half this we know she would have won against Jimbo.
Yeah.
I think she probably would have beaten Alexis. And I think Jessica, Kandy, Lala, and who am I forgetting?
Kandy could be close. Kandy could be close because Kandy also has a little bit of the dead behind the eyes kind of problem when she lip syncs.
More of it than Georges does. But I think people just, because hers, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. Hers is not only the eyes. She has her mouth agape a lot. So it's just like, and I think sometimes it's trying to be sexy with like the part, but I don't get the eyes connecting with the mouth. So it just comes across like, and that's not what I know she's going for. But anyway.
Right. Yeah. That does it. Well, I guess Kahana finally eliminated, both voted out as well as selected by Lala Ri. So kind of unexpected here. I think she escaped death several times with the Heidi quit. She survived a unanimous vote to go home, and it's, you know, I'm happy we got to see her. I also think that I'm okay with the decision.
I am too. I don't think she should have been in the bottom this week, but there have been lots of queens who have gone home this season already against her who were
Mm-hmm.
didn't deserve to be in the bottom. I also think that there were times where she didn't deserve as harsh of a critique that she's gotten. I think that, you know, we're also saying, you know, Michelle or Alexis Michelle's very, very sensitive. I think Kahana is sensitive in a different way. And I think a lot of it comes from she's worked so hard to build herself up, and then to come and get critiques and feel like she's not doing as well as she thought she would. That is understandably frustrating, but then she takes it very personally, like, oh, well, then I'm not good at these challenges. I would argue, except for maybe the SNL like challenge, all the other acting challenges she's been fine in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not that she's been so horrible. She did not do season 11 Kahana level. You know what I mean? She's really has been at, like, I found her funny. She's been really trying to channel that energy. And I think once she just is able to break out of her head a little bit, and I'm really proud of her for sticking with it. I think it's really easy to say, I'm not good at this. I'm not getting in the top. It's really frustrating. I'm really in my feelings about this and I want to go home and go. And I don't know. I understand that, but I also love what Joey J actually put out there and said, listen, if you know that you're going to suck and go home, be as iconic as possible and just
Mm-hmm.
work your damn hardest. Like, she was like, I knew I was going to go home. You better believe I just tried to be like the best possible version of myself. She said, say something stupid on the way out, make a meme, capitalize on it. Like, don't just like throw it away and quit if you can help it. Like, capitalize on this. If this is your career, use something you put on a t-shirt at the end of the day. Like, try to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in your feelings about it, it's completely valid. But like Mama Ru said in her, you know, little talk to the queens, and as
Mm-hmm.
everybody who's been eliminated from Drag Race, which is like 99% of people who've been on the show, like, you just got to maximize your time. This is honestly a sales pitch for people to come to your shows and buy your merch. This is what this is. It doesn't matter about the crown. We talk about the winners, but like, okay, like, you can make that money very easily in drag if you are marketable. Period.
I mean, Jimbo's worst performance was on Canada versus UK versus the world. UK versus the world.
Yes.
The one with Pangina. And that fan that Jimbo's using, that's from the first talent show from that season that Jimbo went home like third in. So it's not, and I still think of that performance. Like, I have the gifs of Jimbo in that like white little blob, like reacting to things in the back. Yeah, that's like ingrained in my brain.
It haunts me. That is actually my sleep paralysis demon.
Yes. Oh, good. It should be. And I do applaud Kahana, as you're saying, for the mental toughness, because it takes a certain kind of person to be able to stick through all of that. And unfortunately, in this episode, this is where we kind of see a little bit of that breaking point, because this is after the Kandy and Alexis fight. And Kahana's just like, this energy, this ain't it for me. I want to go home. I want to remove myself before I get hurt. And I understand where she's coming from, to continue to put yourself out there and to continue to be told, like, you're not good enough. You're in the bottom. We actually voted you out. The only reason you're here is because Heidi quit. Like, that's such a tough thing to continue to exist with, not be able to ever really decompress from, because you're constantly in the competition. And I think that that's part of the reason why she reacts this way in this episode, is because it's built up from week after week after week of being in this position.
I completely agree.
And I think that that also brings us to the initial Kandy Alexis drama, where Kandy is essentially unwilling to budge. Alexis indicates that she's willing to budge to give Lala the role that she wants. I think hoping, like, treat others in the way you want to be treated, showing like, hey, look, I can be forgiving and give up a role that I want. Like maybe you can give me my second choice so you can have we can all have our second choices kind of situation, like a ranked choice voting. And that doesn't happen. Kandy's like, I cannot with the dramatics. Alexis is crying. And then Kahana gets upset. And Kahana wants to leave. And then Ru comes in, which, first of all, where was this energy when Heidi wants to quit? But I guess maybe in the budget they had room for one queen to quit, and they were like, crap. Like, we can't redo the challenge.
I know, but this is going to sound really bad. But I would have
Yes.
liked RuPaul to come out so that Heidi didn't leave, and I wouldn't really care at this point because of how often Kahana's been in the bottom.
I mean, I know,
whether she deserved to be or not, but like at this point, I'm like, you know, she has the defeatist energy versus Heidi was just like, I think just mentally with the dramatics. I think that this is we're seeing a lot of talk from a lot of queens right now. There's a lot of trauma that comes with this show, not too dissimilar because it follows the same model as the other show that created a lot of trauma with its contestants, which is America's Next Top Model. And I really hope that production starts to take some of this a little seriously. And we'll see. But I mean, I say that and I'm gonna still watch. So I'm part of the problem at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love how you know, I mean, the whole thing is sold as like Ru is like coming and being like, look, you know, feelings are not your facts. Don't let your feelings sabotage this great opportunity. You get to do. In the back of my head, I'm also thinking like, yeah, and you also don't want this to become like the season where everybody quits, because if she quits, and then what if Alexis quits, or like, you know, I don't know, then it becomes like this whole like PR nightmare. Like one quit, fine, sure, that's in our budget, but no more than that.
It turns into Nicaragua, you know, and it's just like, what's going on?
Yeah, who's the Nyanka? We're getting a bunch of quits.
Who's the Purple Kelly?
I mentioned this before, but the one, because like Ru's giving this very like heartfelt, like, you know, and you're all feeling things, and that's okay, blah, blah, whatever. And then turns to Alexis like, and you've been crying the whole time.
You big sissy. No, just kidding.
But that's just so funny. I still can't get over that.
It was so good. And I also like that she says that with joy and saying like, listen, like we're all sensitive and it's okay to be sensitive, because at the same time, even within like the queer community, there's still a lot of toxic masculinity. And I think it's really important for us to realize that like, it doesn't matter what your gender identity is. Some people need to cry. Okay. Some of us, and I raise my hand, have never learned after being an infant to not cry when you were overstimulated with information, which is half the reason why babies cry anyway, is because they're taking in, their synapses are forming, they're taking in a lot of information, it's overwhelming, and they have no way to communicate. The only thing they can do is just be like, bah, I'm emotional. And I have not changed since August 10th, 1988, which happens to be the day I was born. So
like, what a day.
I get it. Yeah. What a great day.
Right.
But no, it's just, I think that I love the celebration of saying it's okay to be sensitive. I wish what had been said a little bit more was saying your feelings are valid, but don't, like, feelings are not facts and correct, but don't ignore your feelings either.
Right.
Like you can't like take it to the point where it's like you bottle everything up or you ignore them, because that's also going to have serious repercussions on your health and how you're going to do in the competition.
That, and also feelings give you information, right? Even if they're, once you ultimately decide like, okay, yes, that was irrational, but like you reacted to a certain event or thing or person for a particular reason, like you can unpack that and understand like where that feeling came from. I also understand in a reality TV competition show where you're filming back to back to back to back to back to back, there's not really time to do that and to do that decompression. But yeah, I mean, maybe if capitalism wasn't so strong, they could build in an extra day per week for like therapy. Let's recover from what has happened this week.
Yeah.
But
well, I always think it's funny. Like at one point, Kandy in this episode said, you know, we've been here for like 7 weeks and blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to be like, we know that you actually I wish that they were just like straight up. Like last week when so-and-so went home. No, you mean yesterday. We know that at this point it's episode 7 and that you have been there for 2 weeks. Like every episode takes 2 or 3 days.
TV magic. It's 1 week, all 1 week.
Isn't it interesting that you have reality shows like Survivor that like the whole premise is how long they're actually there? right? Or like Big Brother, and they're like 100 days in that, which I wish they didn't do 100 days. But regardless, like part of it is like we put them in a pressure cooker to see how long they can last within this relatively fixed time frame. I wish Drag Race would at least be upfront and stop trying to front that there's a week in between everything. We know there's not. Fans of the show know that there is not. Stop saying last week. I know that you're trying to say that because of how the episodes air, and you're like, last week when the episode aired, this person went home. No. Just say yesterday was really hard. We had a hard day because so and so went home. The audience will get it. And I think it's a little bit.
I don't know. I've seen audiences be very confused. I hope the Drag Race audience is smarter than the general audience, but as someone who spends a lot of time in Casual's Corner, there's some.
That's true.
There's some interesting viewers out there.
That's true.
Well, speaking of next week, Beth, next week is going to be a design challenge. For the queens, it may be a day later, but for us, it will be next week. And look, Alexis Michelle went home on a design challenge. Lala Ri in the bottom for a design challenge. Let's see what we see. I can't wait. I'm hoping for the best for everybody. Narratively, Alexis probably makes the most sense to go, but
yeah,
not a lip sync to save herself. Hopefully Lala has learned a few things about sewing, and we'll see a better showing from her.
I know that Lala was in the top earlier this season for the ball, but I really didn't care for her sewn outfit. I felt like Alexis was fine earlier, so I can definitely see them being people. I've not been impressed with what Kandy has produced. So I do kind of feel like Lala, Jessica, Jimbo for me are the locks for the top 3. And I don't know who gets that 4th spot. So I could see Alexis go home. I don't really know who else would go. But again, I feel like if Alexis doesn't go home, she's got to win this one. Like I don't see people not voting to get her out if she's in the bottom. And I feel like production wouldn't just be like, you're high, and not give her a win at this point. I don't know. I just feel like that's how the math would work. That's my drag math.
Well, that's the thing. So with the drag math, so we just had episode 7. Next week, we're going to have episode 8. And at least maybe last season is a bad account because last season was all winners where we got 12 episodes. Season 6, we had 12 episodes. So assuming that this trend continues of having 12 episodes, let me just double check with season 5. Season 5 was 7 episodes? That can't be right.
Well, when do we have to vote for the Fame Games? Isn't that
8
like July
episodes.
12th?
July 12th. Yes, that sounds right. So
we know we're at least going that many more weeks, right?
So assuming there's going to be 12 episodes, then at some point we have to have either like a non-elim or someone gets brought back, or we have a bunch of non-elim. I genuinely don't know how this is going to work because next week we go to our top 4 and then we go to our top 3 for episode 9. And then we have episode 10, 11, 12. Like it feels so early to be at this stage that I don't even know how, like, I don't even want to.
What if we got a reunion again?
That would be very fun.
I have been, first of all, the season that we were deprived of a reunion was All Stars 3, where we needed it the most. And I have been hoping they would bring back a reunion for All Stars so bad. So if they give us a reunion this episode or this season, I'm going to be so happy.
So another option is a redemption lip sync, because we did see that in season 6, which we are actually still even an episode behind. Like their episode 8 was the top 7. No, their episode 8 was the top 6, whereas our episode 7 was the top 6. So like, I just don't understand what's going to happen, but I'm just going to go for the ride and
I think there could be that filler episode that is just about the Fame Games queens, and like maybe they're performing and it's just here's your filler episode before the finale.
Yeah. Okay, that's a possibility as well. Well, as I mentioned, we don't know. We'll be there for the whole thing as the season plays out. Beth, where can people find you on? Is there anything else you want to say about this episode? before we close things out here?
I don't have any more thoughts.
Perfect. We
For
nailed
once.
it all. We did a good job. Beth, where
Yay.
can people find you on social media? Anything else you want to plug or talk about?
Yeah, you can find me at Augusta Wendell Levin on all my social media accounts, and I'll be going live with my weekly meltdown later this week, and it'll be one of our BS breakdowns, as we call it, which is just us shooting the shit, talking about what's going on in our lives, and it always devolves into some really random stuff. So if you need a random pick me up on Wednesday, feel free to check us out there.
Perfect. Love that. You can follow Aman at Aman Adwin. You can follow me at Liana RHAP. I was guesting on the 90 Day Fiance recap, which should be released soon for episode 3 of Before the 90 Days. It was very fun. It was a very bizarre episode. I highly recommend you either check out the podcast. If you're not watching the show, you still listen to the pod. It was very fun. So Puya and I having a good time.
Yay!
Let's see. Okay, what else? Oh, yes. For us, if you want to leave star ratings and reviews, you can do so. robswebsite.com/drag race. Thank you to the whole RHAP team for all their help behind the scenes. And we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.